Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this post-lunch session on the state of finance. And I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for this session, Professor V. N. Alok from Indian Institute of Public Administration, a finance professional who has been a member of the 5th Delhi Finance Commission in 2017 and served the 12th Finance Commission 2003-4. He is the one person who developed the concept of devolution index back in 2004 and made it operational every year since 2009 by ranking states. He has also been member and member secretary of many policy making committees and commissions. Reports of many of these committees and commissions have become policies at later stage. Our senior fellow in the Scotch Development Foundation, Professor V. N. Alok, may I now request you to kindly take to the mic, run this panel discussion, do an introduction, and let's see the recommendations that we are able to derive on the state of finance from this panel. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Gurshadhanjal, for having invited me in this very important session that is under the 75th Scotch Summit, State of Governance. And this particular session is on state of finance and particularly the subnational finances. We have a very eminent panelist here that I can see, Mr. R. Chandrasekharan, Joint Commissioner of Labour, Government of Telangana. We have Mr. Sarveshwar Shukla, who is also a Joint Commissioner, MSME and Export Promotion, Government of Uttar Pradesh, and Mr. Manvendra Pratap Singh, who is the Secretary, Industries and Commerce, Government of Assam, Ms. Deepika Rana, she's the Deputy Director, Government of Himachal Pradesh in the Department of Industries and Commerce, and I can see Mr. R.D. Janartha. I'm so sorry if I misspell. I could not pronounce your name very correctly. Mr. Janartha, who's the Additional Commissioner, is State Taxes and Excise. He's our tax administrators in the government of Himachal Pradesh. And Mr. Yogesh, that I can see on the screen, he is the Additional Director, Handlooms and Textile, Government of Karnataka. Then we also have Mr. Saroj Kumar Hota, who is the Additional Director, Directorate of Industries, Government of Assam. So we have a very eminent panelist. They are all practitioners working in different states, and we'll be learning quite a lot about the state of finances from them. Before I request them to make an initial remark in this very important debate, I just wanted to say a few words about the finances here in the country. As you know, Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. It doesn't say India is a federation of states, which means the Constitution as such is pretty unitary in nature. All buoyant source of revenues the government of India collects. It collects custom duty, it collects personal income tax, corporate income tax, and central goods and services, because the central excise has been converted into a goods and services tax. The state, they have been collecting sales taxes, which has been now converted into a state GST, and they also collect the state excise. Typically, state government, they are responsible for most of the services. Takes about health, which was very important in this present pandemic, which has actually shown some kind of a chinks in the systems. So public health, primary education, electricity, water supply, you name it, and the state government is responsible. but they just collect just about 35% of the total revenues that the whole country. So, but they are responsible about 65 to 70% of the services that the whole country are responsible for. So there is a imbalance. They get resources from the union government. There are institutions, what Dr. Gurucharan was talking about, finance commissions. The 15 finance commissions, they submitted their report in 2020, and which is being implemented for the next 5 years or so. 41% of the union taxes are devolved to the states. That is vertically. They also get the horizontal share, which means the interstate distributions, which state should get what. Typically, the bigger states will be getting a larger share from the divisible pool. The smaller states will get a smaller share from this. Prior to this, there were two taxes which were shared. That was the personal income tax, the central excise. After the constitutional amendment, all the taxes formed a part of the divisible pool, and the cess and surcharges are kept outside the divisible pool. But over a period of time, what we can see, the government of India is relying more and more on cess and surcharges. If 42% is devolved, effectively 32% is actually transferred to the states. So which means the central government is playing at the fiscal space of the state government. After this pandemic, it is also being realized that the state government should also be allowed to get more and more sort of borrowing, because there was some kind of stipulations, so that need to be eased out. So point number one is how much money that is being transferred to the states. Cess and surcharges are not part of it. Do we have another mechanisms by which the cess and surcharges, the share, can also reach to the states? Second is the kind of taxes that have been assigned to the states, whether the state be able to generate more revenue out of them. The third point, which is important, is the public expenditure that the state government incur, how that expenditure can be more and more productive on this. So we will talk about more as the debate evolves in this. I would like to first invite a panelist from the government of Telangana, Mr. Chandrasekaram. If I'm not unable to pronounce your name, I'm so sorry about this. So over to you, Mr. Chandrasekaram. Your initial remarks.
Yeah, very good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay, very good afternoon to all of you. Yes, it's an interest. I am Chandrasekhar, Joint Commissioner of Labor from Labor Department, Government of Telangana. You made really important point, and it's in fact has become a political issue also, especially the cess and surcharge issue, which are mainly related to petroleum products. Everybody knows the price have went up, and there are like political listings are there. Anyway, it's the take of the respective governments and to respect the federal, respect each other and try to share properly among the states and central government. But apart from this, I wanted to focus on the expenditure part. Normally, I have been observing many states are implementing social security measures for the public below poverty line people, or various unorganized sector workers. The problem is central government also more or less similar schemes it's implementing, state government also implementing. basically it's ultimately the target group is the same. So the duplicity of implementation of certain social security measures or welfare schemes, probably that can be better controlled, so that there should not be two players trying to compete with each other and trying to take care of the same person. So probably this thing, probably if both the central government, the new labor code, part of that there is a social security code also there, so on which every unorganized employee need to be registered. If everything is routed through this system, probably there will be better savings for both state governments and central government. Not only that, there will be in a better position to share the burden. Okay, when the target group is same person, the same benefit need not be repeated. So I think these aspects need to be really taken care, because at the end of the day, it's the balancing the expenditure also really matters. Not only sharing the income, but expenditure part also, governments need to really look into it and need to frame a mechanism where things will be shared properly, or the same way. Then there will not be any duplicity of the welfare schemes. That is my take on this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chandrasekaram. Very, very important point that you have mentioned here. That reminded me about Article 282, which allows the union government to have the centrally sponsored schemes, some of the subject which falls under the states. And I do not really know how the states have accepted that part of it and allow the union government to run those kind of schemes there in this. So we will take up this issue, this point. But before that, may I now request Mr. Sarveshwar Shukla, if he's there. Are you there, Mr. Shukla?
Mr. Shukla, I don't think he's present. We
Yes,
can.
he's not there. In that case, I can request Mr. Manvind Pratap Singh. Mr. Manvind Pratap Singh from the government of Assam. I could not really see his name on my screen. If not, then I can request Ms. Deepika Rana.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, sir.
Mr. Manvendra Prasad Singh will be joining in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
He's running behind schedule.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
please go ahead.
Sure. Ms. Deepika Rana, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for inviting me on this panel. Sir, I would like to say that the state governments are taking various initiatives and running various schemes for the benefit of industries. I would rather talk about industrialization in Himachal, sir. So our state of Himachal is known as the pharma hub of Asia, as you all know, and it meets 35% of Asia's pharmaceutical demand. There is presence of more than 28,000 enterprises generating nearly 2.5 lakh jobs to the people. And we are the second largest producer of apple. We are producer of plum, peach, and off-season vegetables here, sir. We have 4 favorable agroclimatic zones, and off-season vegetables and exotic fruits are our positive points, sir. We are power surplus states with high quality and affordable power.
Deepika ji, we are not able to see your video. Can you switch on
I think
the video once? Probably there's some.
So I'll just try. I think there's some problem with the video, sir. I'll just try it once. So I think it's not working.
Yeah. All right. If it is not working, then it's okay. Let's go ahead.
So we have high quality and affordable power infrastructure than Asia's. We have higher return on investments also. So our industrial relations are harmonious. We are providing land on lease at a concessional rate. Interest-free payments are there. Then we have net SGST reimbursement and other attractive interest subvention schemes. Then capital investment subsidy, which is being provided by Government of India, which is 30% on plant and machinery. We have concessional power tariff and electricity duty. We have subsidies on transportation, as the transportation cost, is high in Himachal. So we are supporting industrialization. giving transportation cost also. Then we are planning to give customized package of incentives to industries, sir. So here I would like to focus on the initiatives taken by the state government recently. So we are planning to give various incentives to the people of the state. Our Honorable CM has launched the Mukhyamantri Swawalamban Yojana, which we are running very successfully, and it was introduced in the pandemic period only. But we are able to give projects up to 4,500 plus projects we have got approved from the banks despite pandemic. And 25,000 above industries have already been set up. We have generated employment around 7,000 people to around 7,000 people, and total 14,000 is proposed as of now, sir. So state governments are working on providing incentives and to bring up a GDP of the economy, so that we can be a good state and we can contribute to our economy also, sir.
Good. Ms. Rana, very good point you mentioned. Pharmaceutical industry, power, you get transport subsidies. I think that is because of the status of the states that is under the special category states, which means you are hilly states facing lots of problems because of the difficult geographical terrain and considerable borders which is there. So I would like to know from you, since you handle this Department of Industries, do you have an added advantage being a special category states so far as the industrialization is concerned?
Yes, sir. A special package was announced by Government of India in the way back in the year 2003, sir.
Right.
So yeah, it affected industrialization. We have grown like anything out of that package, because there were income tax benefits, there were central excise benefits, and other capital subsidy also was there.
Mm-hmm.
So then we shifted to the second package, in which only capital subsidy was left from the center government. And right now we are having industrial development scheme, which is run by DIPP, Government of India. So out of the package, we are left with only the capital subsidy, and we are fighting for interest subvention and other things to be provided by the central government, because still we are facing problems. Industries are, by coming of GST, industries are going to various other states also. So we are fighting for it. Maybe we'll get it soon, the announcement of new package from Government of India, and we are going to benefit out of it.
Okay, great. I think we can hear from your colleague as well, so far as the tax subsidies are concerned. Your colleague here is Mr. Janartha. So I can request Mr. Janartha to supplement what Ms. Deepika Rana has said, and maybe some other point that you would like to make. Over to you, Mr. Janartha.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
At the outset, I mean, you pronounced my name correctly in the beginning. Am I audible, sir?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sir. First of all, sir, thank you for giving us an opportunity to be the part of this Koch Family Award. And what Ms. Deepika Rana said is very right, because as far as my department is concerned, state taxes and excise. So as you know, sir, we are collecting GST and other types of taxes. And this department is almost contributing 70% to the state exchequer. So as you said in your opening remarks, about the statistics, about the finance, and about the management of the finances, ultimately, I mean, what it is said that money makes the mayor go. State government needs money, finances, to run so many developmental projects, to run so many welfare schemes. So this cannot be done without money. So as far as the Department of State Taxes and Excise is concerned, sir, as I said earlier, 70% we are contributing to the state exchequer. So, sir, mainly, I will be mainly talking about that VAT IT project, which we have implemented way back in 2010, sir.
right.
Basically, so before 2010, whatever functions, whatever tasks were performed in the department were done on an offline mode manually. People used to come to the offices, stakeholders like taxpayers, accountants, tax practitioners. They were every day visiting the offices, and there was a lot of personal interaction interface with the tax authorities. So, I mean, we were not getting the desired results what the government was thinking of. So then we started thinking. We thought of shifting to the computerization. So this IT project was envisaged in 2011, and it was finally rolled out in the first half of 2012. So basic objective of this project was to rope in as many taxpayers and increase the taxpayers so that it ultimately results in the tax increase. So in this project, we have rolled out 25 modules, like offering e-services at the doorsteps of taxpayers, like e-registration, e-amendments, e-returns, e-statutory forms, e-communication, e-appeals, and so on and so forth. So, we by implementing this project, we basically wanted taxpayers can devote more time for business activities with the implementation of the scheme, as visit to the department eliminated by introducing online services, 24/7 availability of the system, then location independence, quick processing, then data reliability, ready availability of information, quick remittances of refunds, etc. So we wanted to give these services to the taxpayers at their doorsteps. And department also gained by this in terms of cost effectiveness, efficient tax administration, organization, performance management. We can see the revenue projection and collection, which helped in formulating the policies as well. So then higher compliance level was there. So like before implementing this project, being, as Madam said, that being a hilly terrain, having a topographical dislocations and disadvantages. Initially, we had a lot of challenges in implementing this project, like the connectivity. Connectivity was the biggest issue. Now we have far-flung areas like Lahaul Spiti, then Chamba, where connectivity issue was there. I mean, initially we have to install connectivity in almost 100 sites, which was a very challenging and uphill task. But we managed. We managed to provide all these facilities, and we finally we were successful in connecting every circle and district office to central network by creating infrastructure at field offices and headquarters, ensuring power backups, then the capacity building of the tax officials so as to utilize the benefits of the new system being introduced in line with the Digital India view. And finally, all these things resulted in ease of doing business. So, like, for example, I would like to say that when we talk about e-registration, earlier people used to visit to the office, come with the documents, then they will submit at the dark level, then dark person will mark to the officer, then officer will mark to the concerned field officer, then concerned field officer will go to the field, make the inspection, then give the report. So e-registration facilitated the taxpayer, the stakeholder to do everything online. I mean, we have all computerized this thing. And with this, when we started this project way back in 2011, there were initially around 30,000 taxpayers. But when GST came in place, and then 2017, July 2017, almost 80,000 people migrated to GST portal. So we have been successfully, this project has successfully broadened the tax base in Himachal. From 30,000, we broadened the base to 80,000, sir. So like this is about e-registration. Then, sir, returns. Earlier, we were not able to monitor the returns. There were so many taxpayers, there were so many dealers, and they used to physically come. And because of the paucity of the staff, shortage of the staff, so it was very just impossible to scrutinize each and every return. So, there was no proper database, there was no proper management, and scrutiny of the returns was not being done properly. And as you know, sir, that along with the return comes the tax. So, from we could not gather the real-time data at that time. So by going online, by digitization, so we started getting returns on time and along with the tax. So, basically, like the payment of tax, online payment of tax really helped us a long way, because earlier, physically, it was very difficult to verify the authenticity of the tax receipts, that treasury receipt. So, I mean, we have come across many cases like people have, sort of, they have produced fake receipts and there was these kind of cases which they have defrauded the government. So with the coming of this computerization, online payment, all these things stopped. Then another thing, sir, then the statutory forms. Like as you know, sir, the assessment of every financial year is to be performed. So for this, statutory forms are required, like C forms, H forms, and all these forms. These are all concessional forms. These are the facility given by the government of India for it is set up against the tax. So, in order to prove your transaction, you have to bring these forms at the time of assessment. So this was again a big challenge because of the availability of these forms, we were not able to frame the assessments on time. As a result, the backlog cases started piling up. So with this online system, so this also got expedited. Then, as far as excise is concerned, that liquor business is concerned, we had started giving e-passes, e-permits, removing that last touch point of authority signature on these highly important documents and excise functions. So, there are many reforms which we have done through this IT project and which have really resulted in broadening the tax base and ultimately resulting in the tax increase. Sir.
Very good, very good. Mr. Janartha, you were able to ease the taxpayers, their tax compliance, and in the process, you were able to broaden the tax base, so more and more people can be there in the tax net. And the computerizations, the e-governance systems, that was the answer to the previous things what you're talking about. Is like the people were coming and they were talking to the tax officials, which means the faceless transactions between the tax department and the tax payers. I would like to ask you one question at this point of time, which everybody is, I think, interested. You had a VAT system before the GST was introduced. Now you have a SGST as of now. What was the growth at that time? What is the growth now? Forget about the pandemic in between. But what is your impressionistic view if you do not really have a correct, accurate figures in this? So that's what the question I would like to pose before you.
Yes, sir. So when we started this project in 2010-11, our a year before that, our increase was 19.06%. But after that, it was 33.73%. I'm talking about VAT regime, sir. It was because of the proper implementation of this scheme. So as far as SGST is concerned, we are not doing it that badly. So, we are getting good results from this SGST as well, sir.
Okay.
I don't have the figures of SGST right now, sir.
Okay. We will come to the points whether the petroleum products, whether the alcohol or the other things can be brought under the net of the GST or not. So that we will come to you a little later. But before that, may I now request Mr. Yogesh from Government of Karnataka. Mr. Yogesh, I can see you were there right from the beginning. So Mr. Yogesh is the Additional Director, Handlooms and Textile. And he has been there for the last 10 years for the promotions of the sector and on micro textile units, including SCST entrepreneurs. So over to you, Mr. Yogesh.
Thank you, sir. And good afternoon to all. It's a very good opportunity for me to express my views regarding the state of Karnataka. First thing I should clarify that I am not finance this one. I am working in the Department of Handlooms and Textiles in developmental wing actually. This Department of Handlooms and Textiles in Karnataka, we are mainly focused on the development of handloom weavers, powerloom weavers, and government entrepreneurs as well as industrialists also. We are implementing many state and central government government schemes for the development of the sector. As everyone knows that Karnataka is famous for IT and BT also. Apart from IT, BT, that silk industries, silk fiber manufacturing, fiber rearing, that is sericulture, which is about contribution to the nation is about 65%. And cotton we grow is about 6 to 8% of the nation compared to nation. And wool also, we have got the wool fiber production also through sheep and other things. So these are main fiber strength in the state of Karnataka. And as far as production line is concerned, we have both the handloom, that is hand-woven fabrics, and power looms also. And apart from handloom and power loom, the traditional weaving activity, we are also having very good in garment, this one, that is apparel industry also. And almost all big brands and big manufacturers are having their offices in Bangalore, and also they're having production centers in and around in all over the state, spreading across the state also. Take for example that Shahi exports, they are having about 40-45 units across the state. And Arvind also, they are having a traces. And Imachinka Seed Limited is one of the biggest unit in Karnataka. They have got both in Bangalore rural as well as Hassan also. And they have got very good spinning capacity also. It is more than 2,15,000 in a single shed, actually, lakhs of spindles in a single shed. So this is about all about the textile scenario in Karnataka. And we are also having some about 4 traditional items also, which have been identified and registered under the GI also. That is a Geographical Indication Act also. That is, one is Ilkal sarees. That is a, I think, good, it's a famous in Karnataka and also neighboring states also. And similarly, Gulet Gudda Kana. Kana means in Kannada, it's a Kana. In English, it is a blouse piece actually. They weave about 30 to 35, 36 inches of width fabrics on handlooms only. That is, and that fabrics is used to make for blouses also, for women, especially women's. And third item in the textile, especially in handlooms, is Udupi sarees. That is in coastal Karnataka. Udupi sarees is also registered under GI also. And fourth item, so it is in the middle of Karnataka. That is a Monacolmore sarees. That is a very famous traditional silk sarees. These are 4 traditional handloom varieties registered under in the GI Act. And apart from that, we have also registered about more than 30 items in other fields also. That is in agriculture, horticulture, and other things also. Karnataka is having a very good weather, which is very suitable for, especially for garments, manufacturing, and other things also. So that is the reason many industrialists and many big players, they are set up the industry in Karnataka. And it's very conducive atmosphere for the garment industry. And as far as our department is concerned, we are implementing many schemes for both new entrepreneurs in the garment industry also, and for the weavers also. For the weavers, both the social aspect and also for development also, we are implementing the schemes. Take for example, for the power loom weavers, we are implementing 2 power looms. That is, out of 2 power looms, 1 loom is being subsidized by the government of Karnataka. And equally, that electronic jacquards also we are subsidizing at about 50%, and for SCST it's about 90% subsidy. And one of the scheme which is in the panel in the Scotch Award also, that is for the new SC/ST entrepreneurs, that is scheduled caste and scheduled tribes entrepreneurs. We are providing the assistance of about the 90% subsidy. Out of 90%, 75% goes to the capital cost expenditure subsidy, and 15% goes to the interest subsidy to the loan availed by the entrepreneurs. This is how that package has been formulated exclusively for SC and ST of the state weavers, state entrepreneurs. And from the initial level, that is, we are selecting the SC/ST beneficiary through workshops, conducting workshops and other seminars also. And then we provide EDP programs about 4 to 5 days for picking up the entrepreneurs' skills to the that new SC/ST beneficiaries. Then we ask them to prepare one small project profile, and also they should place before the local authorities also. Then later we take it the projects on in the state level, and after due approval and other things, we sanction the SC/ST projects with the assistance of about 75 plus 15% state subsidy. This 75% subsidy will be provided in a phased manner. And as until today, we have approved about 172 projects across the Karnataka. And these projects are complete value chain of the textiles that includes a shuttle-less weaving, that's high technology weaving also, then garmenting also, and other value chain items also we are included in the projects. And this is one of the good schemes which provide the that is self-sustaining, as well as their economy also can be increased by the by way of becoming an entrepreneurs rather than working for the others. So this is one of the good schemes in Karnataka. And this is as far as SC/ST is concerned. And other schemes, we have one, we have the policy for the fresh investment in Karnataka. That is a textile policy for the both the textile industry and also apparel industry also, with a about 35 to 45% of incentives will be provided to the entrepreneurs who set up the industry in Karnataka. That also, it covers complete value chain of the textiles, including the manufacture of machineries also we have included in the policy, and other that manufacturing facility like weaving, spinning, processing, and then technical textiles. Complete value chain is included in our textile policy. This is all about the incentives and concessions provided in the Department of Handlooms and Textiles. And the second thing I would like to inform before your this panel is we have in the recent, because of that COVID and other things, we provided two important schemes to the weavers as a relief packages actually. One is Nekar Samman Yojana, which covers about 50,000 weavers across the Karnataka, and another scheme is Powerloom Samman Powerloom relief packages, which covers about 95,000 weavers across the state. And both the schemes we have provided the assistance through DBT portal. That is, it's a hassle-free and directly transfer the amount to the beneficiary. It's nowadays in Karnataka, most of the schemes, many schemes, I can say that, will be delivered through this DBT portal or RTGS portal, similar direct from the government treasury to the beneficiary. That's one of the best practices in Karnataka. And many more schemes have been covered under the this DBT as well as RTGS and other financial portals. So because of this, that the handling time, that is handling lead time, and then transparency in the transfer of money, and the delay can be avoided, and the reaching is 100% we can assure to the beneficiary. These are some of the initiatives taken in Karnataka. So, and we have especially in our department, this the practice of transferring the amount through DBT. We are doing actually from last 2 years actually, and other things as far as financial expenditure and other things, I am not a concerned person. I can I can say that my purview is as far as development is concerned. So this is all about our department and departmental schemes and the profile of Karnataka as far as textile sector is concerned. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yogesh, for a very, very comprehensive presentations on the schemes of Karnataka related to handlooms and textile. You also talked about the affirmative actions within the schemes. Can this be compared to the schemes in some other states so far the affirmative actions concerned? If you can tell us very quickly on this.
Yeah, that especially that relief packages, it's very good. It works out very good in Karnataka for COVID reliefs. That is, I told already. 2 schemes we have delivered to. One is for Nekar Samman, and that's for handloom weavers, and another is powerloom weavers. Apart from this, that policy is very good compared to neighboring states also, especially Andhra and Tamil Nadu and this one. Our investment incentives is about up to 40 to 44% actually in some specific areas. And some other investment part, Karnataka is good, doing well in investment part also.
Okay, I will
attracting the industries.
I will come to you a little later about your response, how you involve the local authorities in this, because you did mention this.
Sure.
I do believe in Karnataka local authorities is quite good. Your Hubli and all. Okay, so maybe the panelists can ask question to each other, but before I request each panelist to ask question to each other, I request Mr. Saroj Kumar Hota, who is additional director in the Directorate of Industries in the government of Odisha or Odisha. Over to you, Mr. Hota. Mr. Hota, Mr. Saroj Kumar Hota. You are muted, Mr. Hota. Can you unmute yourself? Yes. No, you are still muted.
I think Mr. Hota has some problem from his end.
Mr. Hota has some problem in his hand.
Audio.
Maybe we can come back to Mr. Hota a little later. Is Mr. Shukla has come? No.
No.
No. Okay. So we can take few questions from the panelists at this point of time. Mr. Chandrasekaram, do you have some question or do you want to make any supplementary remarks?
Yeah, see, I'm trying to stick myself to the topic of the panel. Mainly, yeah, it's really important to introduce all online systems where one can bring in transparency, and also the belief is you make it simple, there will be better compliance, whether it's for revenue generation or any other compliance aspects. So this is an important thing. I think many states, including our state, we are in the forefront in bringing reforms and also implementing ease of doing guidelines in a true spirit. So I think it's all helping the industries, to make their life easy. And at the same time, one small example, we were having this shops and establishments manual registration system earlier before 2016. It's like our revenue was about 20 crores. Nothing has changed. We made it online. We made it so simple. auto approval, all renewals. Now its revenue jumped to 80 crores in one single registration. So that itself, the way to improve the finances, and also, it's helping the state also. That's my take. Thank you.
Okay, very good. You have also did, I think a good service for ease of doing business, particularly in the labor department.
Yes, sir.
And because of that, the ranking goes up.
Yes.
So can you highlight some of them?
Oh yeah. Yes, we are. In fact, we are always like either number one and number two. Only recently we are into number three. So we are in the forefront in implementing all the reforms suggested by Government of India, whatever the reforms they recommended. Mainly the biggest achievement is even recently we, reducing the complaints burden to the industry. We went through every act and we try to figure out, is it really required? Every section, every provision, is it really required? So every act we analyzed and we identified close to 1,600 complaints, which we thought, it need not be any separate complaints. A self-certification by the employer is good enough. So we issued like two kinds of orders in respect of factories fund and other shops, establishment, other non-factory industrial establishments. We in one stroke through two different GOs, close to 1,600 complaints are simplified. They're converted into self-certification process. That has really received a very good response from the industry. Apart from that, it's like whether labor, factory, boilers, all the three departments, everything is made it online. No service is a manual. Everything is an online, and not only the online, even we try to minimize the interface. I mean, like human interface between the departments and the employers. Any communication one can, electronically send. Even filing the returns, they can do it online, and minimizing the registers and records. If you look at that, about 22 acts prescribes about 42 registers and records. We said it's too much for industry to maintain such, and that too they're all, enacted in a different timeline for a different purpose. So we consolidated it and we said, okay, 2 registers are good enough for you. You need not maintain about 42 registers. So they liked it. Same way, returns, as far as filing of returns, there are like quarterly return and half yearly, yearly, and multiple returns under more or less every act has got one. So we consolidate everything. We try to remove redundancy, and we simplified and made it a single return to be filed online, that too once a year. So these are the things. Not only that, even we are encouraging third-party auditing, because we are observing like auditing, self-auditing by many pharma companies and also IT industries, MNCs. They, instead of somebody finding out, that they prefer to have their own auditing team to scrutinize themselves. So we are also helping them out to, instead of going for this inspection model, if you like file a self-certification, opt for it and submit compliance reports online yourself, you will not be inspected till under 5 years. Same auditing also the same thing. The risk category for inspection will comes down, so that there will be like less. You see, it's encouraging the. It's one way it encourages the people who want to be compliant. At the same time, who wants to be compliant, there should be like a minimum scrutiny, minimum inspection. So it's all to encourage people to have a better compliance. So these are the things implemented. And of course, opening, we are allowing 360 days opening, and IT industry, there are special provisions, exemptions are also granted. For example, like normally, 8 hours duty is a mandatory for everybody, but for IT industry, by which of its nature of job, because we notice some companies works 4 days in a week, some companies 5 days in a week, right? So fine, you can work as many hours in a day, as long as it doesn't cross 48 hours in a week. So that kind of relaxation also, they are liking that. So, okay, one day you may be working 12 hours, or, some other day 10 days, as long as it's in a week, it's not crossing 48 hours, you're good to go. I mean, you need not that overtime or payment of some other compensatory holidays, those things will not arise. We are regular. The biggest plus point is we are very regularly interacting with the industry, almost like monthly basis, you can say, whether IT industry, pharma industry, or CAA, NASCOM. There will be regular meetings. So we keep interacting. They listen to us. We listen to them. So I think that kind of understanding and mutual respect is there. I think the outcome is there to see. So, because the ranking itself shows where we stand.
Okay. You may or may not be having figure, but my two questions to you. First, did you face any resistance from, while you were carrying out this reform? And the second is, how much investment increased because of these reforms? Any analysis of that?
Yeah, about resistance, normally the trade unions leaders may comment that, okay, we have got a complaint, why you simplified so many things. I said, if there is a complaint,
okay.
Yeah, if there is a complaint-based inspection, that's always will be there. Workers will not be at a disadvantage because of these reforms. Okay, in the usual inspections, they are simplified and streamlined, and there is a separate mechanism is created. But if there is a complaint from a genuine worker, okay, normally we try to resolve it through conciliation or mediation counseling method. Okay, as a last resort only, we think about enforcing this law. But my experience is like 95% of the time, if a complaint comes, if you call an employer, if you counsel them, conciliate them, normally if something in line with the law, in line with the policy of that company, they will also agree to resolve their issues. That way, that issue has been taken care through another way of mechanism. Okay, about investment, I told you there is in state of Telangana, we got one unique act, TS IPAS. Okay, it's a Service Delivery Act. Basically, it covers all the about like 16 departments. So through a single dashboard, they can new investment can apply. It's a single window system basically. So single window system, they can apply online, and delivery is guaranteed in 2 weeks time. If some department doesn't deliver, the particular officer will be penalized. So that way it's not, or otherwise it will be like given a deemed approval also. So this really being appreciated in many forums, TS IPAS, that in Telangana State IPAS, which is a single window system. Many companies, they find it very easy to set up a new shop when they want to come and set up a business in Telangana. The numbers, how many exactly, those things are not readily available, but we are like, it's the fastest growing economy in Telangana in the across India when you compare. So that itself indicates the results of the effort we are making.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. I just reading it today's time news that Telangana is allowed to borrow more because you have spent more money on capital.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
a government of India. So really good. Karnataka was also involved in that. So the upcoming states there. Thank you so very much. May I now request Ms. Deepika Rana, if you want to make any supplementary point or you wanted to raise any question to your co-panelist?
Sir, I just want to add on some figures you were asking about the single window usage. We have 55,000 plus investors which are registered on our single window system, and 600 common application forms have been approved. We have through single window system, we have an investment of 17,115 crores which has been approved. Okay. And 20 state departments have been integrated. More than 90 services we have integrated, and 9,000 other departmental applications are there on our portal. And we have approved employment of 48,941 people. And in investor tickets, we have 1,200, and more than 1,000 investor grievances have been addressed, sir.
Oh, very good. Very impressive. Is that the employment that you were able to generate, is it some kind of improvement to the previous year's figures or previous to previous year's figures?
Yeah, sir.
So-
Earlier, investor used to go to various departments and it took lots of time to get all the clearances. Now, due to the single window system, we are going through the EODB process, and we have we have shown an increase in our investment and employment figures. Sir.
That's good. That's very good. Okay. All right. Now, the commercial tax department, I could see Mr. Janartha was sitting there. There's someone else has come.
No,
Okay.
I'm there, sir.
Okay, you're there. You're there. Okay. I could see there is another window which showing commercial tax department. So there's a lady sitting there.
Yeah, commercial taxes department, Bihar.
Oh, Bihar, all right. Are you part
Yes,
of
yes.
this state of finances? You
Uh,
are.
Commercial.
No, they are not part of the discussion on this panel. However, Alok Saab, if you would like to maybe pose a question to her or something like that, I leave it up to you.
Okay. Maybe I come to you after Mr. Janartha can talk about it, and maybe on the same line, maybe you can also say a few things. My question is a little broad. Now you have a GST system. You have a CGST, you have a state GST, and the system is evolving. Do you want to see some kind of reform of the systems in the time to come? Maybe in the immediate run or in the long run? So this is the question, the policy question that I'm posing before Mr. Janartha, and later on to the friend from Bihar handling commercial tax department. Over to you, Mr. Janartha. And any question that you want to like to pose before your co-panelists.
Coming to the first part of your question, sir.
So
Yeah. Right now, I think the system is going very well. The system devised by GSTN, it's just exemplary, and we are stage 2 model. So we are getting a lot of reports, a lot of MISs, and a lot of feedback from GSTN on which we are working. So whenever we feel that there is some need to have more information, more queries, I mean, we straight away approach to GSTN, which we get readily, we get the answers readily. So right now, I think everything is going well. And in the coming days, we hope that, there will be more, advancement and betterment in the system, sir. But right now, it's no issue, sir.
Okay, excellent. We are running short of time, so maybe a very quick remark from the lady from the government of Bihar Commercial Tax Department. Not there?
Hello.
Yes.
Actually, बिहार कमर्शियल टैक्सेस डिपार्टमेंट बिहार को हमने अपना प्रेजेंटेशन लास्ट टाइम अगस्त मंथ में दिया था. हमारा डॉक्यूमेंट मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम पर हमारा प्रोजेक्ट था, जिसमें हमने काफ़ी अच्छा काम किया. हमारे डिपार्टमेंट के लिए बहुत यूजफुल रहा वो प्रोजेक्ट. और फिर स्कॉच ने हमें सेमीफाइनल का अवार्ड दिया. इसके लिए मैं थैंक्स बोल रही हूँ आप लोगों को. हमारे डिपार्टमेंट की तरफ से आपने हमारे प्रोजेक्ट को रिकॉग्नाइज किया, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत थैंक्स. और लास्ट सेशन में जब आपने हमें कॉल किया, बट आपने वहाँ से हमें अनम्यूट नहीं किया, इसलिए मैं रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं कर पाई थी. इसलिए मैंने फिर रिक्वेस्ट किया था कि मुझे मौका दिया जाए. हमारा जो डॉक्यूमेंट मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम है, इसमें हमने अपने डॉक्यूमेंट्स को डिजिटाइज्ड किया और उसको हमने सेफली वेयर हाउस में रखा. क्योंकि हमारा जो बिहार मैनुअल रिकॉर्ड्स है, उसके अकॉर्डिंग हमें अपने रिकॉर्ड्स को मिनिमम 35 इयर्स तक प्रिजर्व करना है. और उसके बाद भी चूंकि हमें रिकॉर्ड्स को रखना होता है, सपोज कोई कोर्ट केसेज हो, कुछ हो, तो उसके लिए हमें प्रिजर्व करना पड़ा. हम उसे डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं कर सकते, और डिस्ट्रॉय करने का जो हमारा प्रोसेस है वो काफ़ी लेंदी होता है. तो ये डिजिटाइज्ड भी हो गया. अब आज के डेट में हम एक क्लिक में, हमने अपने सारे ऑफिसर्स को लॉगिन दे रखा है और एक क्लिक में हम अपना रिकॉर्ड को रिट्रीव कर सकते हैं. इफ वी रिक्वायर्ड फिजिकल फॉर्म ऑफ रिकॉर्ड्स, तो हमें उसके लिए भी 24 आवर्स में हम अपने रिकॉर्ड को रिट्रीव कर लेते हैं।
So nice.
तो
So nice.
आज के डेट में हमारा प्रायर टू डीएमएस जो हमारा स्पेस था, उसमें हमने इतना ज्यादा स्पेस निकाला अपने फाइल्स को वेयर हाउस में भेजने के बाद कि हमारे कमर्शियल टैक्सेस डिपार्टमेंट में आज के डेट में हमारा स्ट्रेंथ ऑफिसर्स का लगभग डबल हो चुका है। 250 ऑफिसर्स करीब प्री जीएसटी पीरियड में थे और वो हमारा 500 प्लस ऑफिसर्स का स्ट्रेंथ हो गया है। तो हमारे लिए काफी अच्छा स्पेस निकला है। और अगर हमारे प्रीवियस ऑफिसेस को आपने देखा होता और आज आप देखेंगे तो आपको इतना बड़ा चेंज दिखेगा, इतना नीट एंड क्लीन हो गया और हमारे सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स भी सेफली रखे हुए हैं। तो पहले जो अगर कोई टैक्स पेयर हमारे एंड पर आता था और उसका हमें कोई रिकॉर्ड खोजना है तो अब हम उससे टाइम देते थे, ठीक है रिकॉर्ड हम खोज रहे हैं, बट अब एक क्लिक में हम उसका
बिल्कुल मैडम, वी कैन सी कि आपका टेबल बिल्कुल साफ है, फाइल नहीं है इस पे, यानी कि सिस्टम इज वर्किंग। बिल्कुल
सर, ये तो जीएसटी का भी है कि जीएसटी के कारण सारा चीज आज सिस्टम बेस्ड हो गया, तो हमारे यहाँ मैनुअल खत्म हो गया है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
जी जी, तो
धन्यवाद मैडम जी, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं सॉरी, मैं आपको बीच में कट कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि टाइम अब हमारा इस सेशन का पूरा हो चुका है। सो
थैंक
यू वेरी मच, and I take the opportunity to thank all the panelists for a very rich discussion, extremely rich presentation that you made, and share your insights about the reform process that has been undertaken in each state. So thank you, Scotch.